Before the doors creak open and the lights begin to flicker, ask yourself this. What secrets would a family mansion keep if its walls could speak? Tonight, we're stepping into grand old houses where generations lived, loved, and hid terrible truths. Each hallway echoes with whispers. Each room carries a memory that refuses to die. These classic horror films don't rely on cheap scares, they pull you in. Slowly, mercilessly, stay with me until the end, and tell me which mansion haunted you the most. Like, share, and subscribe if you dare to return for more. 1. Rebecca, 1940. A young bride enters a grand seaside mansion, only to discover she is living in the shadow of a woman who refuses to stay dead. Have you ever walked into a place and felt like you didn't belong there, like the house itself was watching you? Manderley is not just a mansion. It breathes, it remembers, and the moment our unnamed heroine steps through its gates, you can feel it tightening around her like a polite, elegant trap. The sea air is cold, the halls are vast, and every silence feels deliberate. This is not a house that welcomes newcomers, it measures them, compares them, and finds them lacking. Rebecca never appears on screen, yet she is everywhere, in the way the servants lower their voices, in the immaculate rooms preserved like shrines, in the sharp glances that say you will never be her. As viewers, we're not just watching a story unfold, we're living inside the anxiety of someone slowly realizing that marriage did not bring safety, only isolation. Have you ever felt overshadowed by someone you never even met? What makes Rebecca truly unsettling isn't ghosts or screams. It's the quiet cruelty of comparison. The house becomes an extension of memory, a monument to obsession. Mrs. Danvers glides through the corridors like a living echo, her devotion chilling, intimate, and deeply wrong. Every time she speaks Rebecca's name, it feels like a spell, one meant to erase the living for the sake of the dead. And then there's Manderley itself. The towering staircases, the locked rooms, the windows staring out at the unforgiving sea. It asks a terrifying question. Can a place love someone so deeply that it destroys anyone else who tries to replace them? As you watch, you may find yourself wondering, would you fight the house? Or would you slowly disappear inside it? The horror of Rebecca creeps up on you. It whispers instead of screams. It makes you doubt perceptions, loyalties, even love itself. By the time the truth surfaces, you realize the mansion was never neutral, it was complicit. A silent witness that chose its favorite and punished the rest. So tell me, do you think Manderley was haunted by Rebecca's spirit, or by the people who refused to let her go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy horror that gets under your skin and stays there, like the video, share it with someone who loves classic chills, and subscribe. The next mansion is already waiting. 2. The Spiral Staircase, 1946. A mute woman hides inside a shadow-filled mansion while a killer climbs closer, step by step, toward her silence. If you couldn't scream for help, would you trust the walls to protect you, or betray you? From the moment you enter this mansion, darkness feels intentional, lamps glow weakly, hallways stretch just a little too far, and every shadow seems to listen. Our heroine cannot speak, and that silence becomes the film's cruelest weapon. You feel it immediately, the terror of knowing something is wrong, yet being unable to warn anyone. Have you ever tried to scream in a dream, only to realize no sound would come out? The house stands like a nervous system, every staircase a vein, every door a secret pulse. At night, it changes, floors creak with purpose, curtains move when no wind is present. The camera drifts, watching from corners, from above, from places no human should be standing. It's as if the mansion itself is complicit, guiding danger through its own design. Do you believe a house can choose who survives? What makes the Spiral Staircase unforgettable is how it traps you inside vulnerability. You're not chasing the killer, you're hiding from him. Each scene stretches your nerves tighter, forcing you to notice small things. A candle burning too low, a hand gripping a banister, the slow, deliberate rhythm of footsteps above. The spiral staircase becomes more than architecture, its fate coiled into wood and iron, winding inevitably downward. Family presence in this house feels distant, unreliable. Relatives pass through rooms like ghosts of responsibility, blind to the fear thickening the air. And isn't that scarier than monsters? being surrounded by people who should protect you. Yet don't see the danger at all? The mansion holds generations of routine and neglect, and now it shelters something far worse. As viewers, we lean forward, almost holding our breath for her. Every glance toward the staircase asks the same question: is he already there? The film doesn't rush. It understands that true horror lives in waiting, in anticipation, in the unbearable pause before something terrible happens. By the time the truth is revealed, your nerves are already exhausted. So let me ask you, what frightens you more, the killer in the shadows, or the silence that keeps him hidden? Would you trust your instincts, or would fear freeze you in place? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this kind of slow burning, mansion set terror pulls you in, like the video, share it with fellow classic horror fans, and subscribe, because the next staircase is even darker. 3. Dragonwyck, 1946. A young woman is invited into a majestic riverside mansion, only to realize the family bloodline may be more dangerous than any ghost. If power could rot from the inside, what would it leave behind in the walls of a house? From the first glimpse of Dragonwyck, rising above the Hudson like a proud relic, you can feel its hunger. This mansion doesn't lure you with warmth, it seduces you with authority. High ceilings press down instead of lifting you up, and every ornate detail whispers of control, lineage, and entitlement. Stepping inside feels less like entering a home and more like crossing into someone else's obsession. Would you feel honored to be invited, or quietly afraid? Nicholas Van Ryn doesn't simply own Dragonwyck, he embodies it. His presence fills rooms the way damp air fills stone corridors. Slowly and relentlessly, as he moves through the house, you begin to understand that this is a place built to preserve dominance, not happiness. Generations have lived here under the weight of expectation, their desires crushed beneath the idea of a pure family line. And you can almost hear the echoes of those who had no choice. Have you ever felt trapped by a legacy that wasn't yours? The horror of Dragonwyck is aristocratic, refined, and deeply poisonous. There are no sudden screams, no obvious monsters. Instead, dread seeps in through polite conversations, measured glances, and the unspoken rules of the household. The mansion watches silently as its master tightens his grip, mistaking possession for love and tradition for destiny. Each room feels like a courtroom where the past is always the judge. What makes the experience unsettling is how the house seems to reward cruelty. Its grand halls amplify Nicholas's authority, while smaller rooms suffocate anyone who resists him. Windows frame the outside world like a forbidden dream, reminding you that freedom exists, but not for those bound to this family. At some point, you realize Dragonwyck doesn't just shelter madness, it encourages it. As a viewer, you're caught in a slow burning unease. You want to escape, yet you're drawn deeper, just as the characters are. The mansion becomes a symbol of inherited sin, asking an uncomfortable question: how much evil can be justified in the name of family and tradition? And perhaps more frightening, how easily can elegance disguise cruelty? So tell me, do you think Dragonwyck creates monsters, or simply gives them space to grow? Would you walk away from a place like this, or stay for the promise of power? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're drawn to classic horror where menace wears a refined smile, like the video, share it with fellow Gothic fans, and subscribe. The next mansion hides an even darker secret. 4. The Lodger, 1944. A quiet room for rent inside a family home becomes the doorway to paranoia, because the true danger may be living under the same roof. If someone knocked on your door late at night asking for shelter, how sure would you need to be before letting them in? At first, the house feels ordinary, respectable, a place where routines matter and doors are locked not out of fear, but habit. Yet the moment the lodger arrives, something shifts, not loudly, not obviously, just a subtle tightening of the air, as if the walls themselves have started to listen more closely. You feel it before the family does, and that's what makes it unsettling. Haven't we all ignored that first uneasy instinct at least once? The lodger speaks softly, moves carefully, and never quite meets anyone's eyes for too long. He exists in the in-between spaces of the house, stair landings, hallways, shadows near the doorframe. The family tries to be polite, to be civil, because suspicion would be rude, and rudeness feels worse than danger. The home begins to divide itself, public rooms filled with forced normality. Private spaces heavy with doubt. Would you confront what you fear? Or pretend it isn't there? This is a mansion of restraint, not grandeur, and that's where its horror lies. Every creak of the floor becomes a question. Every closed door becomes an accusation. The house no longer protects its inhabitants, it tests them. As the tension builds, you realize the family is trapped not by locks, but by politeness, denial, and the desire to keep appearances intact. Isn't that often how real fear survives? What makes the lodger linger in your mind is how it turns domestic space into psychological quicksand. No ghosts roam the halls. No curses are spoken aloud. Instead, dread grows from glances exchanged across the dinner table, from conversations cut short, from the slow realization that safety is based on trust, and trust can be misplaced. The house doesn't scream when danger enters. It simply closes the door behind it. As viewers, we're pulled into a cruel guessing game. Is the lodger truly a threat? Or is fear inventing a monster where none exists? And perhaps more disturbing, does it even matter? Because once suspicion takes root, the damage is already done. The home, once a place of order, becomes a maze of second thoughts and quiet terror. So let me ask you, what scares you more, an obvious threat, or one that hides behind good manners and silence? Would you act on instinct, or wait for proof that might come too late? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy classic horror that turns everyday spaces into something deeply unsettling, like the video, share it with someone who loves slow-burning tension, and subscribe. The next house may feel even closer to home. 5. Gaslight, 1944, a loving husband, a grand townhouse, and a woman slowly questioning her sanity, because the most dangerous horror lives inside the mind. What would you do if the person you trusted most calmly told you that your fear wasn't real? At first, the house feels elegant, almost comforting. Soft lamps, heavy curtains, polished furniture, everything suggests stability and refinement. But listen closely, something is off. The lights dim for no reason. Footsteps echo overhead when no one should be there. Objects vanish, then reappear exactly where you were told they never moved. And each time it happens, he smiles gently and says you imagined it. Have you ever doubted yourself because someone else sounded so certain? This mansion doesn't attack with shadows or screams. It erodes, slowly, methodically, room by room. It becomes a stage for manipulation, where truth bends under repetition. The walls feel closer every day, not because they move, but because her confidence shrinks. You can almost feel the weight pressing down, of being watched, corrected, dismissed. The house becomes a mirror reflecting only what he wants her to see. What makes Gaslight terrifying is how intimate it is. There is no monster hiding in the dark. There is a husband sitting calmly in the light. His cruelty is precise, wrapped in concern, delivered with patience, and the mansion helps him. Its hidden spaces, locked rooms, and flickering lights turn into tools of control. The house doesn't scream for help. It collaborates in silence. Ask yourself, how many lies can a place hold before it breaks the person living inside it? As viewers, we're trapped with her. We notice things she notices. We hear what she hears. And yet, every time she reaches for certainty, it slips through her fingers. The fear isn't just that something bad might happen, it's the possibility that she's already lost herself. That is a far deeper horror. Would you recognize manipulation if it wore the face of love? The brilliance of Gaslight lies in its restraint. The tension coils tighter with every quiet conversation. Every denied memory, every moment where the house grows darker and no one else seems to care. By the time the truth surfaces, the damage has already been done, not to the walls, but to the soul trapped within them. So tell me, what frightens you more? A house that's haunted? Or one that helps convince you you're losing your mind? Do you think you'd fight back, or start believing the lie? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if psychological horror that crawls under your skin is your kind of fear, like the video, share it with someone who loves classic suspense. And subscribe, because the next mansion won't need ghosts to destroy you. 6. The Night House, 1959. A quiet family mansion after dark becomes a maze of whispers and dread, because night reveals what daylight keeps hidden. Have you ever noticed how a familiar house feels different once the sun goes down, as if it remembers things you don't? By day, this mansion appears calm, almost respectable, the kind of place where voices sound softer and footsteps follow old routines passed down through generations. But when night falls, the house exhales, shadows stretch where walls once felt solid, and silence thickens into something watchful. You don't need to be told that something is wrong, you feel it. That instinctive unease, the one you try to ignore. Would you trust it, or convince yourself you're overreacting? The family inside this house clings to normalcy like a ritual. Lamps are lit in the same rooms. Doors are closed in the same order. And no one speaks too loudly after dark. It's as if the mansion has trained them. Watching this unfold, you realize the horror isn't sudden, it's inherited. Passed quietly from one night to the next. From one generation to another. How long do you think people can live with fear before they stop noticing it? What makes the night house so unsettling is its patience. Nothing rushes toward you. Instead, the house waits. Floors creak just enough to make you look up. A corridor seems longer than it should. A room feels colder. Though nothing has changed, the mansion doesn't threaten, it observes. And in doing so, it pulls you deeper into its rhythm, where night becomes a presence rather than a time of day. As viewers, we start listening more closely. Every pause in dialogue feels intentional. Every shadow feels placed. The house becomes a character with moods, restless, resentful, quietly cruel. You begin to wonder whether the family lives in the mansion, or whether the mansion is simply tolerating them. That question lingers longer than any single scare. There's a particular kind of fear that comes from realizing escape isn't dramatic. No one is chained to the walls. The doors aren't locked, yet leaving feels unthinkable, as if stepping outside would break an unspoken rule. The house has shaped their lives too completely. And isn't that terrifying? That a place can define who you become without ever raising its voice? By the end, the night house leaves you with a cold, lingering thought. Some homes don't need ghosts. They only need time, silence, and people willing to endure them. The darkness doesn't attack, it settles in, patiently waiting for you to accept it. So tell me, do you believe houses can absorb the fears of those who live inside them? Have you ever felt uneasy in a place that had no obvious reason to scare you? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if slow, atmospheric horror is what keeps you watching until the lights come back on. Like the video, share it with fellow classic horror fans, and subscribe. The next mansion only grows darker after midnight. 7. Suddenly, last summer, 1959, a wealthy family's mansion hides a memory so dangerous that silence becomes a weapon, and truth a death sentence. If remembering the past could destroy your life, would you choose to forget, or let someone else erase it for you? From the moment you enter this mansion, everything feels too composed. The garden is lush, almost aggressive in its beauty, and the rooms are arranged with obsessive care. This is a place designed to impress, to intimidate, and most of all, to control the story. As voices remain calm and smiles stay polite, you sense that something violent is being held just beneath the surface. Haven't you ever felt that tension? When a room feels quiet not because it's peaceful, but because it's afraid? The house belongs to a family that treats reputation like religion. Every conversation is measured, every memory is filtered, and at the center of it all sits a woman who refuses to let the past breathe. The mansion becomes a courtroom without a jury, where one version of events is repeated until it hardens into law. You don't hear screams here, you hear corrections. Isn't that sometimes far more frightening? What makes Suddenly, Last Summer so disturbing is how horror emerges through language and power. The walls don't close in physically, they close in through persuasion. Wealth and authority. Truth is treated as an illness, something to be cut out before it spreads. And the mansion supports this cruelty effortlessly, its grandeur lending legitimacy to lies. Would you trust a beautiful place more than a broken memory? As viewers, we're pulled into a psychological trap. We listen to fragmented recollections, feel the discomfort grow, and slowly realize that the most horrifying act isn't what happened last summer, but what the family is willing to do now to keep it buried. The house feels complicit, A silent accomplice that has witnessed everything and chosen its side. Can a place be guilty simply by standing still? The tension builds not through action, but through pressure. Each conversation tightens like a noose. Each denial sharpens the stakes. You begin to feel the suffocation yourself. That creeping dread of knowing the truth yet being powerless to protect it. And when the final revelation comes, it doesn't feel like relief, it feels like exposure. Raw, uncomfortable, irreversible. What lingers after suddenly, last summer ends is a chilling thought. Some families don't fear monsters, they fear honesty. And some mansions aren't haunted by ghosts, but by carefully curated lies that demand sacrifice. The house doesn't echo with screams, only with the question of how much cruelty can hide behind elegance. So tell me, if you were given the power to silence the truth forever, would you take it to protect your family? Or would you let the past speak, no matter the cost? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if psychological horror rooted in power, memory, and control grips you until the final word, like the video, share it with classic cinema lovers, and subscribe, because the next mansion has been lying for even longer. 8. The Little Stranger, 2018. A decaying country mansion awakens something unseen, because some houses don't want to be remembered. They want to be felt. Have you ever returned to a place from the past and sensed that it hadn't forgiven you for leaving? Hundreds Hall stands tired, wounded, and proud all at once. Its walls are chipped, its rooms too large for the lives still moving inside them, and yet it carries itself like royalty fallen on hard times. From the moment you step through its doors, you can feel the imbalance, not just between past and present, but between the people and the house itself. This isn't a home waiting to be saved, it's a place waiting to be understood, or perhaps, to be avenged. The mansion belongs to a family slowly fading into irrelevance, clinging to traditions that no longer protect them. Every room feels like a memory no one dares to touch. The silence isn't empty, it's loaded. When strange things begin to happen, the house never announces itself. It nudges, it hints, it allows doubt to do the damage. Would you trust your senses if the evidence was always incomplete? What makes The Little Stranger so deeply unsettling is its refusal to give you certainty. Is the house haunted? Is it grief made physical? Or is something far more human at work? The mansion becomes a mirror, reflecting envy, resentment, and buried shame back at those who walk its halls. And the more time you spend inside it, the harder it becomes to tell where the cracks in the walls end, and the cracks in the people begin. As viewers, we drift through Hundreds Hall like uninvited guests. We notice details others ignore. A child's presence that never quite leaves. A wall scarred by something unseen. A sense of being watched not with malice, but with expectation. The house doesn't lash out, it waits for permission. And that patience is terrifying. Have you ever felt like a place was quietly judging you? There is a particular sadness woven into this horror. The mansion is not loud in its anger, it's mournful. It remembers a time when it mattered, when its owners mattered, and now it feeds on the imbalance left behind. The past presses against the present until something gives. And when it does, the house doesn't scream, it exhales. By the end, The Little Stranger leaves you with an uneasy question that lingers long after the screen goes dark. What if the haunting isn't supernatural at all, but emotional? What if places remember how they were treated, and respond in ways we can't control? The mansion doesn't chase anyone away. It simply reveals what was already there. So tell me, do you believe Hundreds Hall is haunted by a ghost? Or by human longing and resentment? Have you ever felt uncomfortable in a place without knowing why? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if slow, atmospheric horror that blurs the line between the supernatural and the psychological pulls you in. Like the video, share it with fellow Gothic horror fans, and subscribe, because the next mansion is listening more closely than you think. 9. The Unseen, 1945. A seemingly ordinary family home hides a presence no one wants to acknowledge, because some dangers survive by being ignored. Have you ever felt watched in a place where everyone insists nothing is wrong? This house doesn't announce itself with grandeur or decay. It feels lived in, practical, almost safe. That's what makes it dangerous. From the moment you step inside, there's a sense that something has already happened here, something unfinished. The rooms are modest, the hallways familiar, yet the air feels tight, like a held breath. You don't fear the house at first. You doubt yourself. And isn't that how the worst fear always begins? The family treats the home like a fragile agreement. Certain topics are avoided. Certain doors feel emotionally locked, even when they're physically open. When unsettling events begin to surface, they're brushed aside with explanations that sound reasonable enough to silence concern. The house doesn't scream for attention. It waits for neglect to do the work. How long do you think fear can survive if everyone agrees not to see it? What makes the unseen so unsettling is how quietly it moves. The horror lives in glances that linger too long, in pauses during conversation, in the sense that someone else knows more than they're saying. The house becomes a container for secrets, holding them just out of sight but never out of reach. You feel it as a viewer, that creeping awareness that the truth is nearby, yet deliberately hidden. As the tension grows, the home begins to feel smaller, more oppressive. Rooms lose their neutrality. Staircases feel like transitions you might regret making. The safety promised by domestic routine starts to rot, revealing how easily comfort can become camouflage. The unseen threat isn't just a figure lurking somewhere, it's the collective decision to pretend everything is fine. Have you ever stayed silent because speaking up felt worse? Watching the unseen feels like being trapped inside polite denial. You notice the signs long before the characters act on them, and that gap creates unbearable suspense. You're left waiting, hoping someone will finally say what everyone already suspects. The house doesn't force confrontation. It allows fear to mature, to grow stronger through avoidance. And when it finally surfaces, it feels inevitable. There's something profoundly disturbing about a horror story where the setting isn't cursed or ancient, just familiar. The film suggests that terror doesn't always arrive from outside. Sometimes it's invited in, offered a chair, and allowed to stay because acknowledging it would be inconvenient. The house reflects that choice perfectly, calm on the surface, complicit underneath. By the end, the unseen leaves you with a quiet but chilling thought. How many horrors survive simply because no one wants to look directly at them? The house never attacks. It just waits for courage that comes too late. So tell me, what scares you more, a threat you can see, or one everyone agrees to ignore? Have you ever sensed something wrong and stayed silent? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if subtle, psychological classic horror is your kind of fear, like the video, share it with fellow old-school horror fans, and subscribe. The Final Mansion is hiding something even older. Before we close the doors on this list, let's end with a house that doesn't just remember the past, it breathes it. 10. The House of the Seven Gables, 1940. A cursed family mansion where ancestral sins refuse to stay buried. And every shadow feels like an accusation. Have you ever wondered if a house could judge the people living inside it? The first thing you notice about the House of the Seven Gables is not its size, or even its age, it's the feeling that you are being watched by history itself. This is not a home that welcomes you. It tolerates you. It waits. The walls seem swollen with secrets, and the corridors feel like they've heard too many confessions to ever be silent again. The story unfolds like a whispered family legend passed down through generations, each retelling heavier than the last. The Pinchion family lives under a dark curse, born from greed, betrayal, and a crime that time has failed to forgive. As new heirs return to the ancestral mansion, hoping for wealth or redemption, the house responds in its own way, with creaks, hidden passages, and a suffocating sense of inevitability. You start to feel that the building itself remembers everything, even when the characters wish to forget. What makes this film quietly terrifying is its patience. It doesn't rush to scare you. Instead, it lets dread settle in slowly, like dust on old furniture. Every glance exchanged across a dimly lit room feels loaded. Every locked door invites suspicion. And when secrets begin to surface, they don't arrive with a scream. They arrive with the cold certainty that the past always demands payment. There's something deeply unsettling about how the house mirrors the family's moral decay. The richer the history, the darker the corners. Hidden staircases and secret rooms aren't just plot devices here. They're metaphors for buried guilt and unspoken crimes. You're not just watching characters move through a mansion. You're watching them navigate the consequences of choices made long before they were born. As a viewer, you might find yourself asking uncomfortable questions. If you inherited a fortune soaked in blood and betrayal, would you walk away, or convince yourself it was never your responsibility? Can a place truly be cursed? Or is it the people who refuse to change that keep the curse alive? By the time the story reaches its conclusion, the House of the Seven Gables feels less like a setting and more like a silent judge, passing sentence without ever speaking. And when the final shadows fall, you may realize the most frightening idea of all. Some houses don't need ghosts, they already have a conscience. So tell me, do you believe the past should stay buried, no matter the cost? Or do you think some truths deserve to tear the walls down? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you would do if this house held your family name. And as the doors of the House of the Seven Gables slowly creak shut behind us, one question still lingers in the air: did we leave these mansions? Or did they follow us home? From whispered corridors to inherited curses, each house we visited proved that walls can remember, and silence can scream. Which mansion unsettled you the most? And why? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. If you felt the chill, don't forget to like the video, share it with a fellow horror fan, and subscribe for more classic nightmares waiting in the dark.